One of the calls that people were most fired up about was when he essentially did a basketball style flop on a sideline play. And so it's like, he knows what he did. I mean, it is. I mean, we accept it in basketball. We accept it in soccer. It's kind of counterculture to the mentality that we associate with football. So it
and
comes
it's
off a little
new
weird.
in football.
Well,
I've never
there's not a lot of
seen
guys
that.
doing it.
I
That's
never
the
seen.
thing, yeah.
That's the craziest thing that I've never seen that before. You have Mahomes, and the biggest thing surrounding the Chiefs right now is not even Chiefs versus Bills. It's Chiefs and referees versus the field, and even so much so that Mahomes actually addressed that today, and this was his comment. He says, "I don't feel that way."
Essentially, that the referees are biased in favor of the Chiefs.
Yeah, the referees are doing their best to call the game as fair as proper as they can, and then also he went on to say, there were a lot of other plays in the game that were made in order for us to win and the other team to lose. Essentially, you know what I mean. What do you feel about that?
Interesting that he felt compelled to address it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the right week to have addressed it, and this is why.
It's not like an open address. He was asked, and that was his answer.
Yeah, respond to it.
Yeah.
One of the calls that people were most fired up about was when he essentially did a basketball style flop on a sideline play, and so it's like he knows what he did. I mean, it is. I mean, we accept it in basketball. We accept it in soccer. It's kind of counterculture to the mentality that we associate with football. So it comes
it's
off a little
new
weird.
in football.
Well,
I've never
there's not a lot of
seen
guys
that.
doing it.
I
That's
never
the
seen.
thing, yeah.
That's the craziest thing that I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And it's like he's introducing it, and I'm a part of the crowd that doesn't really like it in basketball, even though I'm a fan of the 76ers.
Sure.
We have a main culprit in Embiid. But with him, it's like, damn, it's new. But is that going to spring? I'll let you finish, but is that going to spring, other guys doing it and things like that? I don't know.
It's possible that other guys are going to do it.
Yeah.
In the context that he did it, it was, I feel like I know why he did it, and it's rooted in just being like a ruthlessly competitive person. And he knows that, I'm on the sideline here. If I embellish this contact a little bit, maybe we get an extra 15 and a first down. It's just a cold, calculated move to win the game. And I think that he's, the reason why he's successful is because he's so freaking driven to win. And this is kind of just an extension of it. I'm not happy about it. I'm not impressed by it, but I see where it's coming from. And, it'll probably have a bit of a spillover effect. You might see some guys in other games, do something similar.
Yeah. My first takeaway was that play, because I actually seen him do that before, Mahomes, and pull up on the sidelines. So and what's going to happen is, just like all the Brady rules and things like that, and whatever, for better or for worse, they're going to look at it in the offseason, and they're going to either make an adjustment or not. But for right now, they have this reprimandum, or whatever, say that word, on all quarterbacks. Like it's you know what I mean? They're so protective of quarterbacks in the NFL, and probably justifiably so, because they control so much of the game, so much of the offense. I mean, we just saw last week when the referee went in on the sidelines where the team is. That's the first time I've ever seen that. They'll go have a conversation with Josh Allen about a call that was not made, and he explained himself. He went I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And you had other players saying, yeah, I've never seen that before a day in my life. And so there's such it's just such a key point to protect quarterbacks, so they're going overboard about it.
But I mean, in a lot of ways, rightly so.
I think so. Yeah.
Who liked watching the Dolphins in the middle of this year?
Jesus, I had Tyreek Hill on my fantasy teams, man.
Who liked watching the Jags with Mac Jones?
Yes.
I
didn't like Mac Jones in college.
There's a reality that there are less than 32 people on the planet that can play competent quarterback at the professional level.
Did you see the Chiefs back up in week 18?
Carson Wentz. And he was a guy that was in an MVP race at one point in the league.
He has a Super Bowl ring.
And he's got a Super Bowl ring as a backup. But yeah, it's crazy to think, but there's a big reality that there are not 32 guys that can play the position at a competent level on the planet. And for this product to work, you got to have these guys playing.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine. I mean, it is absolutely exciting to see the renewed Chiefs-Bills in a playoff game, that rivalry.
Yeah.
But if either team was missing their guy, the feeling about that game, and I would suggest the viewership of that game, drops off dramatically.
Yeah.
If we knew for certain that Pat's not playing or Josh weren't playing because of injury, that's not the same game. It's not the same product
at all, man. At
Yeah.
all. And the calls you had last year, you had some calls that were made. That just is what it is. That's a part of the game, man.
Yeah.
Got the tuck rule from Brady. Who agrees with that if you're not a Patriots fan? Like that. I mean, it just happens.
Yeah.
That's a part of football. It's a part of sports. Next week rolls on, you have to win the game. I mean, nobody's going to care. I'm not going to say they're not going to remember, but nobody's going to care about the missed calls or calls that were made in the week prior.
Yeah.
It's just not thought about, man. In the history of champions, you know what I mean. We don't care about whatever the extra fouls that Jordan received. He has 6 championships. It is what it fucking is.
At some point, the achievement overwhelms the story.
Yeah,
and becomes the story itself. But yeah, I mean, for people that saw it, people that lived it, you are gonna. And I'm not saying these were bad. I mean, you're going to remember the late hit from the Bengals linebacker. You're going to remember the PI in the Super Bowl with the Eagles. And for that matter, on the other side of that, we talked last week, you remember the 2002 phantom pass interference against the Miami Hurricanes. There's certain things that you're going to remember if you were there and lived them. But for the people that weren't there, we didn't watch it in that era, they're just going to see the Super Bowls and be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, but Bills Chiefs while we're here. All right. The Bills beat the Chiefs earlier in the season. And honestly, they kind of did it convincingly. The game was, that was a rough game for me to watch as a lifelong Chiefs fan. But, they kind of kicked their ass, man, on both sides of the field from first quarter to fourth. And so now, a DB from the Chiefs said, we know exactly what we did wrong. We are glad we got these guys back. As a Chiefs fan, I wanted the Ravens. I didn't want the Bills. I just think the Ravens are the most talented team in the NFL, but I know that they're going to make mistakes in a big game. It just is what it is. They do it every time. They did it last year, the year before. The Bills and Josh Allen and the Bills, man, you really have to go out and beat those guys. There's not going to be a ton of room for error. You know what I mean? And that's what scares me about this team.
I agree with your concerns, but I mean the other way to look at it is that the Bills have never beaten the Chiefs in a playoff game.
Yeah,
they've won the majority of the regular season games in these with these relative rosters and coaching staffs, but they haven't won the big one in the playoffs. So. Again, the game is the game, and it'll sort it out. But from a going into it standpoint, you have to accept whatever matchup is in front of you. I think anytime that you get a draw in a tournament or a playoff, or you're overly fixated on I want this opponent and not that opponent, you're basically undermining your own confidence.
No, for sure. Shout out to the champions here, man. He's saying that Kate bet against Pat and all that good stuff. Appreciate your comment, my guy.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where I'm not betting against Pat in a meaningful playoff game.
No.
And so I'm expecting the Chiefs to win, but I recognize it could go the other way. It should be a fantastic game. Because if you think maybe the Bills are a little bit better, but the Chiefs are at home, and both teams have to deal with their respective histories in this matchup, and that being the Bills never getting over in a playoff game and the Chiefs having that confidence that they'll find a way at the end, it's poised to be a fantastic game.
No other quarterback in the history of the NFL is 4-0 against a rival quarterback in the playoffs. There are some that are 3-0, 2-0, of course. And right now, like as you said, Mahomes is 3-0 versus the Bills and Josh Allen. 4-0, you're into uncharted territory.
All these gambling stats.
No. It's not a gambling stat. It's a I own you stat. That's what it is. If Mahomes wins this Sunday, or whatever, I think it is Sunday. Then basically he owns Allen, man. 4-0. No other quarterback in the history of the league is 4-0 or more against a rival quarterback in the playoffs. I think that's significant. I think that does something to to Allen and his. And to his what was the word I'm looking for? His legacy.
Oh, for sure. I mean, again, we talked a couple weeks ago. I mean, like with Lamar and him having tremendous pressure on them because they're in a legacy-defining period of time.
Yeah.
Last week they played against each other, and Josh emerges from that, and now he gets a shot at the King. And again, if he beats the King this Sunday, that means a whole lot.
It means a whole lot,
him. Man. But. Absolutely. I mean, and that's what this is all about. Like, two great quarterbacks, two great teams playing a high leverage game to go to the Super Bowl. This is what we want. Can't ask for anything more. No, for sure. And so we'll check that out and see, man. I can't wait, man. That's the best game for me. Is that the early or late game?
That is the later game.
Oh, good. Okay.
The first game will be the Commanders and Eagles.
Divisional battle.
Yeah.
I mean, again, credit to what Washington's done. They were fantastic against Detroit, but Detroit similar, and wasn't talked about the same, but the amount of turnovers that they had just really shot their efforts dead. The Ravens and the Lions both lost because of their own turnovers.
Yeah.
If they didn't have the level of turnovers, and we're talking like 4, I think the Lions might have had 5 total turnovers.
Detroit is in trouble, man. The Lions are in trouble because they're losing their coordinators. They're
gone.
Yeah.
Ben's going to the Bears and Glenn's going to the Jets.
They're gone, and then you have this team that have really just disappointed in two playoffs. Last year, the Detroit was in the Baltimore Ravens seat. This year they were in the Ravens seat, I guess.
No, this year they were in the Ravens seat.
Yeah. But last year they had a big lead in a playoff game. They squandered it, lost. You come back.
Yeah, they were on the road against the 49ers, had the upper hand, and let that get away. So two really, really significant playoff failures
and disappointing. And now where do you go from that? Do you can Jared Goff really do this for you? I don't know. And then you have a defense that was beat up and battled, but it's now you have to pay some of those guys. I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, they were missing so many. There were so many injuries to where it's like. I don't know.
Well, defensively, the story is the injuries. So many talented guys were injured or just coming back as this ended. So I think from a defensive personnel standpoint, let's just get healthy and contractually secure our core pieces. Offensively, I mean, it's a super talented offensive team. I mean, I really like the roster, but we're going to find out a little bit about Dan Campbell, and we're going to find out about him 2 ways. What does he do with these 2 new hires? What does he do with these 2 spots? Because these are significant spots. He's losing top-grade guys on offense and defense on the coaching staff. And during his rise, they've had a certain amount of continuity. They've kind of done this together. So I think, can he identify and lure top-quality assistants to fill these roles? And they're attractive roles, though, because of the talent they have on the roster.
Yeah.
And then, and can he coach a little bit? Or was he kind of riding off of some talent on his staff? That's going to be the other question.
That's going to be the other question, man. Because, listen, Ben was such highly regarded for these crazy plays that he's calling. You got offensive linemen throwing, catching, pitching. You know what I mean? So I'm curious to see what the offense looks like. We saw when the Eagles made a Super Bowl run, they lost their offensive coordinator, and all of a sudden they became and defensive coordinator, lost both of them to head coaching jobs. All of a sudden, all of a sudden Jalen can't throw now, and the fucking offense looks terrible for a year or two until they, catch up. So even if you make the right,
until they got Saquon,
even if you until they got Saquon, but my point to that was even if you make the right hire, maybe you don't come right out of the gates. Maybe it takes a year or two to learn the new offense. I can't imagine someone comes in and runs an identical offense to Ben with all this creativity and all of this.
That's what I mean by the hire is that you're gonna have to get a guy because the team is talented. It's essentially personnel wise ready to win, and you can't have like a developmental situation.
Training wheels, no.
He's got to hire a guy that can get the job done quickly on both sides of the ball. And maybe it is kind of coming in and recognizing like, hey, let's kind of continue to do a lot of things that were already going well, and I'll just kind of add a few flourishes. And it's, that's the thing, that's going to be the critical thing that's going to prove Dan Campbell.